Let's face it, when Hollywood royalty said, "I do," studio bosses started sweating bullets. Forget the fairy tale. Back in the golden age, divorce wasn't just a personal disaster. It was a financial earthquake that could level an entire studio, send shareholders into a frenzy, and turn Tinseltown's biggest names into cautionary tales overnight. So, what does it look like when a broken heart comes with $1 million invoice, and sometimes the keys to the studio vault? Stick around, because these love stories bankrupted more than just marriages. Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks. It's the original Hollywood power couple, the king and queen of silent cinema, Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks. Together, they didn't just rule the box office, they co-founded United Artists, a studio built on the promise that actors could finally control their own destiny. But what happens when the dream team turns into a tabloid nightmare? By the 1930s, Pickford and Fairbanks had it all: mansions, fame, and more influence than some monarchs. But as their marriage soured, the whispers grew louder. Fairbanks started gallivanting across Europe, while Pickford, America's sweetheart, was left trying to keep up appearances and a business empire. It was the classic story: two titans whose private heartbreaks spilled right into the boardroom. The divorce hit United Artists like a ton of bricks. Their split wasn't just about love lost, it was about who owned what and how much control each would keep. Legal wrangling over UA stock turned the studio's finances into a soap opera of its own. Both Pickford and Fairbanks drew huge salaries and demanded their shares, but neither wanted to sit in the same room, let alone make business decisions together. Investors got jittery, films stalled, the press circled like sharks, gleefully reporting every bitter exchange. And here's the real kicker: during the Great Depression, UA was already on shaky ground. Suddenly, their two biggest founders were locked in a financial tug-of-war, draining the company's coffers to cover settlements, legal fees, and payouts. It's estimated that their divorce directly contributed to years of losses, investor panics, and near bankruptcy for United Artists. The studio had to restructure/staff and rely on outside partners just to survive. In the end, the Pickford-Fairbanks divorce wasn't just Hollywood's first A-list heartbreak. It was the moment that proved even a studio built by legends could crumble under the weight of a failed marriage. So next time someone says a breakup is just personal, remind them, sometimes it's box office poison. Jack Warner and Irma Salomon. Jack Warner was the last of the tough old studio moguls, the cigar-chomping titan who built Warner Brothers from scrappy Nickelodeons into an industry giant. He survived the talkies, the depression, even the rise of television. But nothing shook the Warner empire quite like the day Jack's marriage imploded. After 45 years of marriage, Jack stunned Hollywood by leaving his wife, Irma, for a woman young enough to make gossip columnists giddy. This wasn't just another studio affair swept under the rug. Irma wasn't about to take the humiliation quietly, and she knew exactly where the money was buried. The settlement was a bombshell: $4 million in cold, hard cash, the equivalent of over $35 million today, plus a big chunk of Warner Brothers' stock. In the context of 1960s Hollywood, this wasn't just an expensive breakup, it was a corporate disaster. Suddenly, the studio that had weathered gangster flicks and Bugs Bunny was caught in the crossfire of Jack's personal drama. To pay the settlement, Warner was forced to liquidate assets, borrow against studio lines, and cut secret deals just to keep the lights on. Shareholders panicked. The press had a field day. The divorce that ate Warner Brothers splashed across the headlines. Employees whispered that if Jack couldn't keep his home together, maybe he couldn't keep the studio together either, and maybe they were right. Industry insiders say the financial hit of the divorce was the final straw that pushed Warner to sell the studio to Seven Arts in 1967, ending the era of family-run Hollywood forever. Suddenly, one man's midlife crisis became a cautionary tale for every studio in town. If your private life goes off the rails, the entire business can skid with it. Jack Warner's divorce wasn't just a splashy scandal, it was a ticking time bomb that detonated in the boardroom. And if you think that kind of personal drama doesn't ripple out to the bottom line, think again. In Golden Age Hollywood, divorce wasn't just a family affair, it was a high-stakes game of corporate roulette. Rita Hayworth and Prince Ali Khan. In Hollywood, some marriages are just good for headlines. But Rita Hayworth's union with Prince Ali Khan, That was pure tabloid rocket fuel, enough to ignite a financial firestorm back at Columbia Pictures. When the love goddess of the silver screen tied the knot with actual royalty, the world gasped. But when it ended in a high-profile divorce, studio bosses were left gasping for a very different reason. The cost nearly sent Columbia straight to the poorhouse. Let's rewind. Rita Hayworth was Columbia's crown jewel. Every red dress, every slow-motion hair flip, every romantic close-up, raked in cash for studio president Harry Cohn. Then, at the very peak of her fame, Rita shocked Hollywood by running off with Prince Ali Khan, the dashing playboy son of the Aga Khan. The gossip mills spun out of control. Paparazzi stalked the couple from Paris to Tangier, chronicling every scandalous detail. Cohn wasn't amused. Hayworth was contractually obligated to deliver hit after hit, and instead, she was giving him tabloid migraines. But it got worse. The marriage was doomed from the start, with infidelity rumors swirling and culture clashes that would make a soap opera writer blush. When Hayworth filed for divorce in 1953, the media frenzy exploded. But behind the headlines, Columbia Pictures was bracing for impact. Rita launched a brutal custody battle over her daughter, Princess Yasmin, dragging Ali Khan and, by extension, the studio into European courts. Lawyers circled, the bills soared, and Hayworth refused to work, citing emotional distress. For nearly 2 years, Columbia lost its biggest star and a steady revenue stream. Here's where it really hurt. Columbia's legal team shelled out over $1 million a king's ransom in the 50s on settlements, European lawyers, hush money for damaging stories, and advances to keep Rita under contract. On top of that, the studio's image took a hit, as Hayworth became a magnet for controversy rather than box office gold. Studio chief Harry Cohn openly blamed the royal fiasco for Columbia's near bankruptcy that decade. Projects stalled, investors got nervous. Several smaller productions were axed just to cover Rita's costs. And the worst part? When Hayworth finally returned, her films underperformed, and the PR disaster lingered for years. In the end, the Hayworth-Khan divorce was more than a heartbreak. It was a lesson in just how fragile a studio's finances could be when stardom went sour. Columbia survived, barely, but the scars ran deep. And as for the love goddess, her divorce set a new Hollywood standard. Breakups could now bankrupt a studio, not just a spouse. In Tinseltown, even royalty wasn't safe from the cost of heartbreak. Clark Gable and Rhea Langham. Think your divorce is messy? Try being the king of Hollywood, desperate to marry your queen, while the entire MGM brass watches the clock and counts every dollar. Clark Gable's split from Rhea Langham wasn't just a juicy bit of scandal. It became an existential crisis for Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer at the precise moment they were gambling the farm on Gone with the Wind. Here's the setup. Gable's career was blazing hot. Audiences swooned, the studio cash registers clanged, and producer David O. Selznick needed Gable as Rhett Butler. No substitutes, no excuses. There was only one problem. Gable was still legally hitched to his second wife, Rhea Langham, who knew exactly what her husband was worth. Langham wasn't some starstruck ingenue. She was a savvy, much older socialite who'd stood by Gable's side as he clawed his way up. Now, she saw her payday coming, and she wasn't budging without a record-shattering settlement. Behind the scenes, panic was brewing at MGM. Louis B. Mayer, the all-powerful studio boss, did what any self-respecting mogul would do. He opened the company checkbook. Mayer personally fronted Gable the then astronomical sum of $300,000, think $6 million today, just so Clark could expedite the divorce and get back to the business of making cinematic history. But this wasn't a friendly IOU. Mayer deducted every cent from Gable's future paychecks, leaving the studio's biggest asset working under financial stress, and Gable essentially owned by MGM until the last dollar was repaid. If the settlement had collapsed, so would the biggest movie in Hollywood history. The tabloids watched every court date, every negotiation, gleefully reporting on the Bachelor King and his million-dollar heartache. Meanwhile, the Gone with the Wind set waited in limbo, costs rising, investors biting their nails, and MGM's entire slate hanging by a thread. When the ink finally dried, Rhea Langham walked away with a then-record payout. Gable married Carol Lombard, and MGM got its Rhett Butler. But make no mistake, The studio's financial juggling act put their very future on the line. If the deal had gone bust, Gable might have been out, Gone with the Wind could have blown up, and MGM's era of dominance might have ended right there in the courthouse. The lesson. In old Hollywood, love triangles weren't just tabloid fodder. They could rewrite box office history and threaten to bankrupt even the biggest studios in the world. Ingrid Bergman and Petter Lindstrom. Most divorces come with drama. Ingrid Bergman's shattered more than her marriage. It sparked an international scandal that almost brought down an entire Hollywood studio. This wasn't just gossip column material. Bergman's personal life became a powder keg that sent shockwaves across continents, emptied theater seats, and put legendary producer David O. Selznick's financial empire on the chopping block. Here's how the fireworks started. Bergman, already the darling of Hollywood thanks to hits like Casablanca and Gaslight, was under an exclusive contract with Selznick International. Her box office draw was unmatched until she fell in love with Italian director Roberto Rossellini. The affair, complete with letters splashed across headlines and a pregnancy outside marriage, exploded into public view, while Bergman was still married to Swedish doctor Petter Lindstrom. Lindstrom, blindsided and humiliated, launched a brutal divorce suit, demanding not just alimony, but child custody and a chunk of Bergman's American earnings. The tabloids had a feeding frenzy, with senators and preachers weighing in on the moral decay of Hollywood. The public outcry was so intense, several U.S. states actually banned Bergman's movies, calling her persona unfit for decent audiences. The financial fallout was immediate and staggering. Selznick, who had invested millions in Bergman's image and had big projects lined up, found himself in freefall. Not only did he face a potentially ruinous legal settlement rumored to be over $250,000 in direct payments and contract buyouts, several million in today's cash, but his entire marketing machine collapsed. Theaters boycotted her films, sponsors pulled their support, and future projects were shelved or canceled. Selznick's company, which had relied on Bergman as its main draw, was forced to sell off assets, cut staff, and essentially dismantle its studio infrastructure just to survive. And let's not forget the impact on Bergman herself. She was denounced on the Senate floor, exiled from Hollywood for years, and forced to rebuild her career in Europe. But for Selznick International, the cost was more than just a loss of star power. It was a near-fatal financial blow that exposed just how intertwined personal lives and studio fortunes could be in the golden age. If there was ever a case where one passionate affair toppled a Hollywood empire, this was it. Bergman's divorce left Selznick's studio in ruins, proving that in the world of old Hollywood, love, scandal, and money always made for a dangerous cocktail. So, next time you hear about a celebrity breakup, remember, some splits did more than break hearts. They broke the bank and nearly took down the whole movie business with them. In old Hollywood, every love story was a high-stakes gamble, and every I do came with a hidden price tag. What's your take? Should studios have gambled their futures on romance? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit subscribe for more wild Hollywood stories, and keep your popcorn ready because the drama never really ends.